a little bit about how it's developed, because she was in the earlier iteration, so I don't know if you want to say
happy to. Yeah. So as Roger was saying earlier, when I first came onto the show, it was like a 2-act piece, really. And it was really interesting. The current version that we have now, like Roger was saying, it's the beginning and end. And it's really interesting how much the new character and also that middle has really changed the feel of the piece. And I think what's really nice as coming through, like having been on it for a while now, you can see how much we've taken and like changed it and moved it and played with it. And I think that's really nice, and it shows how, it's, again, Tilly's been saying and Stop saying and Roger been saying, it's been a really nice experience to kind of go through that as a team and like get everyone's like opinions on what's going on and also playing with what that could be. And I think what's really interesting is that Adonai, it's actually become a bigger thing. Like when we first did it, it was like potentially just the voice that you hear at the end of a chatbot, or you hadn't really thought about like, okay, what's behind this AI voice that you're hearing or interacting with? And now Adonai is not only Adonai, she also has 3.2, and because she has 3.2, she also has all the other iterations before that and what they have been like, and it's all this kind of feeding that backstory, especially like as actors. That's been so nice to kind of explore that and what that means. And the show itself, I think again, it's got a kind of a bigger and just like bigger and bigger in a great way. Like we're throwing things to the extremes, literally throwing things to the extremes, which is great. Don't worry, you won't get hurt as an audience member. But it's been great just to kind of, again, throw things out, see what works, what sticks, what doesn't. So it's been a really, really fun process.
Is that right?
Yeah, of course.
So ever since it started, this is a question, not I don't know the answer. The way it's been cast is, well, Toby has to be Toby for one very specific reason. Has to be a man, really. Because for one joke, that's the reason. But Adonai has always been cast as a woman, and Adonai 3.2 is obviously now cast as a woman. I just wondered how you guys as women felt about that. Is that interesting? Is it completely non-gendered? I don't know.
I don't think it has to be. I don't think it has to be gendered. I think it's interesting if there are links to an association of like mothering, like we were talking about mother-daughter, sister-sister relationships, whether that is different, and like whether if you're hearing a woman's voice, are you more comforted than if you're hearing a male person's voice? But at the same time, it would be really interesting to see if that would change it or not. Or is an automated voice? Like if you hear Siri, why are you picking to do directions, for example? Why are you picking a woman's voice, or why are you picking a male, or what you associate to be a woman or a man's voice? So yeah, I don't know really.
For me, the interesting thing is that I think traditionally we think of this kind of overarching and quite uncaring authority being more masculine, don't we? We in the world that's more generally represented as a kind of masculine trait, and I think feminine traits are more caring and more nurturing, mothering, as you say. And it is quite interesting to portray not only a deity but this kind of system, as Sot was saying, the kind of overarching mechanic of capitalism as feminine, and I suppose in some ways that's quite good, because it's kind of a little bit jarring in that sense. I don't know, what do you think? That's an interesting question for you as well.
I had this question in the beginning, and I gave it a lot of thought. It was something that I kept thinking about asking you, and like what you thought about, and why is Adonai a woman or AC? What I've come to realize by reading the play 1,000 times, basically, is that there's no necessity. There's nothing in the play that indicates that it needs to be this or that.
Yeah.
And especially for me personally, I'm not a big fan of gender as an idea. I do think it's like a social construct. But yeah, you always have to think about what it means to other people, how it can be interpreted, can you use it, can it serve what the play needs to do, especially as a director. My idea of directing is always about that. It comes down to this: how do I serve the play? So you have to take into account all these things that are outside of your perception, basically. But yeah, I don't think there is a necessity for Adonai to be gendered. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. No, go for it.
as a woman, quite enjoyed playing the oppressor for once. Because, I think being a woman, there are certain roles we don't get to play as much because, as you said, it is more male dominated, or that's what we see masculinity as. So I think it's nice to mix things up a bit and show us in a different light. I'm fed up with being the nice, calm, sweet, because a lot of us women aren't either, and that's so fine as well, and but again, I don't think it's to do with gender, this play, but personally for me, I really enjoyed playing a character like that I probably wouldn't have the opportunity to often,
It's nice to
we're
see
rarely the
two
villains, aren't
really
we?
strong,
Yeah.
like women characters on stage.
Yeah.
And also that's why I think I was thinking about earlier, that middle section,
Yeah.
it really kind of just showed, like, that kind of tussel's really fun.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
we get to see all sorts of different layers of them both, which is, like you said, it's all completely fine, but often we don't get to see that side.
Exactly.
Like, on screen or on stage because it's not, nice or kind or
Exactly.
whatever that means. Yeah.
100%. So, yeah.
From what little I know of the show, it also made me think about how, like, a lot of people have been thinking about how a lot of chat boxes, how a lot of chat bots, they tend to be like female voices, and how, like, this servitude of femininity has been, like, basically exploited and, like, dehumanized and, like, isolated into this one feature that capitalism can then just mass produce. And it's just kind of interesting how this AI, who's actually also the oppressor, but also kind of the system, has the same front, almost.
Especially you at the beginning, with the voice sounds lovely and kind. Please try again.
Yeah.
And it's so lovely, and then it kind of turns into this.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I was literally about to say that. I think that what's really interesting in how the play progresses, and probably the biggest change from the previous iterations to now, is that deterioration of what the audience realizes is happening, from the mask and the voice slowly deteriorates, and so does the mask and the play itself. It's quite interesting how it kind of, Toby's experience gets worse and worse progressively. But I'll leave it at that. I won't give any more spoilers, but yeah.
Anything else you guys want to talk about the show? How's promotion been going?
I don't mind talking. I wasn't involved very much at all in the run you did at Camden, and that was really you guys. And I think it was promoted predominantly from social media posts and things like that. Previously at Riverside, because I live in West London near Hammersmith, obviously I got a lot more friends and family to arrive at the earlier shows, the earlier iteration. Down in Brighton, one of the reasons I wanted to go to Brighton, is because I thought the Brighton Fringe was really good fun. What I'd seen as a bystander in previous years, a bit cheaper to get to than Edinburgh, and but also I know quite a lot of people in Brighton too, so I'm looking to do quite a lot of promotion down there. I'm going to go down and do some flyering and some. I've got friends who run pubs down there, so I'm going to try and go run the pubs and try and use that. I don't know. I mean, I'm on the group there. You may be the chat group for people asking questions about the Fringe, and a lot of people are questioning whether they want posters or banners or flyers or whatever. I know it's really hard. I mean, that's one of the reasons we only went for the 50-seater, really, because I think essentially you've got to sell 200 tickets, which is a bit more, probably a bit more achievable than selling 600.
180 at this point.
Yeah, so I don't have any real answers. I mean, obviously stuff like this helps. Hopefully some feedback that Sot captured from the previous show will help. I don't know. As I say, I think our task is possibly a little less daunting than yours. I don't know.
Okay, so what have you found has changed, like your idea towards the themes and or towards capitalism? Any of that stuff? How has that evolved in throughout the writing and rehearsal process?
I feel like you become more aware of your implicit and explicit participation. The fact that we're talking about it, thinking about it, what is this bit? All of this kind of goods that we don't need, stuff we don't need, and we buy the same things over and over and over again. Just from my own perspective, it's really interesting, observing other people doing that and not having any idea or really questioning why. and then talking about it with like friends who aren't necessarily in the arts or don't like, they're not necessarily participating in theatre to challenge their points of view too much. I've come to see this play who work in like corporations and business and go, oh my God, like it's really made me think, because I'd never even questioned it before. I just think the next promotion, the next holiday gets me through. And they haven't really thought about the, you know, the macro of it all. So that's been really interesting, kind of having conversations inside the rehearsal room. And then also, because like Sot was saying earlier, we kind of take for granted how much we know about this play now and how much we've gone into depths about the themes and the philosophies. And so what's been really fun is then having those conversations completely like not blind, but like after no one else has any backstory, and they're like, oh my gosh, this made me feel this and this and this, which is great. It's really nice when some like an art kind of provokes emotion, obviously. So I think that's been lovely.
I like this question, and I like it because from the director's chair, I get to choose most of the stuff that we focus on. So I read the play, immediately I had this idea about what the play is, what it's about. And for me, from the beginning, it was about consumerism. It was very obvious, it still is after all this time, after all the reads, after all the rehearsals. But I like to pay attention to what people see, and obviously every choice, everything, like how much the audience notices or how much these guys like see and how like their perception changes. One thing that I'm still like waiting to see is like with this version that we just did, to see how Roger perceives it, because obviously he started the whole thing. He had all these ideas, but the balance of it is always different from person to person, from time to time. And it's super interesting for me to see how much of that is there to be noticed, because from the idea in my head, it's a very different like story to what someone watching the show sees. But yeah, for me, from the beginning, was about like consumerism and what society does and how it does it, and obviously finding the ways to demonstrate that, to enhance this whole experience, to point towards that direction. So yeah, I'm just watching, let's say. I'm not really answering the question. I'm just very eager to see how much they get out of it. And I got a little bit from what the audience told us, and that's super useful for me. And obviously going to another iteration, another version that we're gonna tweak and change now. All this information is vital for me to go into that.
So I'm going to make another point about, we talked a little bit about the gender or the lack of gender issues, I don't know, whatever. But in terms of the age group, I'm quite intrigued, because obviously I'm old, and I'm part of the generation that caused all these problems, really. And I've actually found quite really pleasingly for me that younger people have engaged with it probably more than older people. Maybe it's because you asked me to add that line in about millennium angst. You know, I can quite understand why a younger generation are anxious about the future, because I think things are coming to a head. I mean, I know every generation faces kind of what they think are existential crises or really catastrophic impacts on their lives in some ways. But I think, you know, things seem to be coming, obviously, particularly in terms of the environmental and the the crisis of the planet, and I guess that's very worrying for young people, you know, facing their future. So I like the idea that young people are engaged with it. I suppose it's quite worrying that they're so engaged, because it maybe is hitting truths that are unfortunate. But yeah, that was an interesting learning for me. That I think it resonates. I think it resonates with your generation more than it does almost with people of my generation that watch it. So I don't know if that's something you found.
Yeah, it was just the people that I was talking about. They are in their kind of either mid to late 20s. So they're getting to the point where they feel like they they have made certain choices, but they have so much life ahead of them. And that's exciting, but also daunting. And the world that is around us, like you were just saying, it's not just the capitalism and the consumerism. It's the fact that that also is like really impacts the environment and all those things that, you know, but so to bring it around in the sense of like, even though that all of these things, it's how it's presented, I think is really accessible for people because it's presented in like an absurd comedy. It doesn't make, they go away afterwards and go, oh, like that's how I feel because of all this. Like not just, it's not like being fed loads of facts about it. It's like, it's not, it's rather than it being like a YouTube video of like all about consumerism and capitalism, it's like a sketch show and you get like and you're like, okay, wait, does that sketch mean this or does that? And that's great because I think they go away going, okay, that even though I was laughing, I start laughing. And then I think one of the things at the start of the play, there's a part of the play which the no words are spoken, but because people are uncomfortable, they start, you know, there's that little bit of like, oh God, what's going on here? But that's that feeling that you kind of get when you start to think about these topics of like consumerism and capitalism. If you think about it too much, then you do feel uncomfortable. You're like, oh God, that's the world. But as humans, what we'd like to do is laugh. So I think that's part of why we were enjoying it as well.
I think with breaking the fourth wall as well, that definitely helps to get them sort of
with us.
100%. Like we got them in our claws.